I've only ever painted body parts before, panels, fenders, and doors. Never a full cab, definitely never a full vehicle. This is gonna be my first time attempting something this big, using a paint that I've never used before, on a project that I've never done this size before, using a gun that I've never used before. If you wanna see that happen, stick around. What's up, guys, and welcome back to INTHESHOPTV. Yeah, that's right, I've never painted anything like this before, and certainly not a whole vehicle, and I'm gonna attempt to paint this entire 55 Chevy truck by myself. I think this is gonna be a temporary paint job from start to finish. I think I'm trying to get a couple of years out of it while I save up some money to take it to a shop and have it, show finish with that laser straight body. But I do want it to look as good as possible so that people aren't like, ew, what are you driving? Now, I've painted some body panels before. I've painted fenders, doors. You guys saw me paint the firewall the other day. Stuff like that, it comes out good. I'm fairly competent in doing stuff like that. But this is a little bit bigger of a project. I'm a little bit nervous about it, but kind of excited at the same time. So I think we're gonna try and learn together. If you guys are down for that, follow along. So just to get you guys up to speed, I've been gutting everything out, getting this ready. I gotta clean the inside of this cab still. Been doing a lot of patchwork, a little bit of body work here and there just to get this thing nice and smooth and ready for primer. Now, a little bit of a history on this cab. I know where it came from. I know the guy that had it before me. I know what he did to it. I've seen a lot of the work that he did. This was sanded down. A lot of the rust that was on it initially was sanded off. I got it down to bare metal. He shot some primer on it. So he actually did the cab corners before I got it, and I know they were done right. I watched him do it. So I think the first plan of attack here, and the part that I'm arguably looking forward to the least, is I'm gonna sand this entire thing down with some 320 grit and put some tooth in it where it's still nice and smooth. Then I'm gonna shoot it with an epoxy primer, and I think I might thin it just so it flows out a little bit. And when you do that, it's kind of being used as a sealer, not just an epoxy primer. So that's the plan of attack. I think I'm gonna get sanding here. Not looking forward to it, but part of the process. I'm just gonna pause right here for a second so you guys can see where I'm kind of sanding through that old primer that's on there a little bit, where you can see the bare metal showing through. So you can see that this definitely was stripped before I got it. It's really easy to burn through this light primer, even with that 320 grit. So that makes this kind of a really good candidate to go ahead and spray over this with a thinned epoxy primer. Normally, if you're gonna use an epoxy primer, when you're doing a restoration like this, you really wanna strip it all down to bare metal. Like I said, in the case of this, where if you have a vehicle where you know where it came from, you know it was stripped previously, you know what's underneath, you know all the rust is gone, then you can go ahead and just kind of flatten this down, put some tooth in it with a 320 or maybe even a 400, and then shoot your epoxy primer over it like we're gonna do. So I'm doing the large flat areas, and then these little corners like in here and in here, I'm gonna hit that with a scuff pad, which is basically the same grit. I just don't want to dig in there with the DA and cause some waviness or unevenness in the body itself. So we'll just use a scuff pad on all the small, hard to reach places. All right, so our whole cab is sanded down, and as you can see, we've got some halos and body filler spots showing up there. I'm gonna go ahead and hit them with a sealer. Just gonna be using an aerosol sealer by U-Paul. My hope or my goal is basically so that we seal these spots with this gray finish with the sealer, and then we start priming it. It won't suck into the body filler and create halos in our primer job. All right, so the cab is all sanded down, spot primed, starting taping up the openings now. I think we're gonna start with the inside. You know, that may have looked like a couple minutes on video, but this has been going on for about 3 weeks, I'm not kidding. Those of you that follow the channel know I haven't uploaded a video in a little bit. This is why. So after the body work was done, and after we spot primed everything with sealer, I went over the entire cab inside out with a 320 maroon scuff pad, just to put a little bit of tooth in it and get everything nice and smooth. All right, so I'm choosing to start with the inside of the cab. We've got everything pretty much taped off. We've got that door taped off completely. And this one is open just because obviously I need a way to get in and out. I'm not a spray pro. I'm working with a new gun, so I'm not really sure how it's gonna come out. So we're gonna start with this part of the back wall first because it's gonna be the most inconspicuous. So if I really mess up, I'll have time to make adjustments before anything gets up higher where we can actually see the paint job. Of course, this is only epoxy primer right now, so it's not the actual paint that's gonna get laid down. So it's a little bit more forgiving. So everything is sanded down with 320, hit it with the scuff pad. What I want to do though is I vacuumed everything out. I've blown it out with the air gun, but that's not enough. If you touch it, you can still see that you get some dust on your hands from just sanding all the primer off and everything. So when you get some wax and grease remover, and I'm gonna go over everything with shop towels as best I can to try and get it clean until I see no dirt coming off on the shop towels. And then I guess it's time to load up the gun and shoot some primer. Well, it's about 4,000 degrees in here. You're not supposed to paint when the humidity is above a certain percentage. I'm about 100% over that percentage. Whew. That sucked. Holy crap, I look like shit. Well, anyway, I added a little bit of reducer. You're supposed to only mix that epoxy at a 1-to-1 ratio, meaning one part of the epoxy itself and then one part of the catalyst, and you're supposed to be good. Since I'm using this as a sealer, I added a little bit of reducer. You're supposed to go 10-15%, which is about what I did. And it laid out super glassy smooth. There's a little tiny run on the back wall. I'm happy it's there, not anywhere else, because we're not gonna see that. It's just kind of getting your gun speed down. This is the first time I've used that gun, and it's the first time I've ever shot a reduced epoxy as a sealer, so a little bit of a learning curve. Anyway, I caught that run right away. Thank God I was in the back wall, and then I kind of got my speed and my distance down pat, and there was no more runs. And with that, I use the slow reducer, which means that it just kind of stays wet and suspension longer and lets it flow out a little bit better. So there is no orange peel whatsoever on that primer. It's nice and glossy smooth, which is really good because we're gonna lay our top coat over that, and you really don't want a lumpy surface, or you don't want to start sanding and stuff like that to get a smoother surface to lay your top coat on. It helps if you get this here to lay out nice and flat, which we did. Now you're supposed to do 2 coats of this, and I kind of screwed up because I I primed/sealed the step right there, and I have to go in past that again and kind of drag the hose over it. I should have left that part undone until I laid my second coat on the inside, then I could stand outside and then paint that and do 2 coats there. It was kind of stupid on my behalf, but live and learn. So some of you might be wondering, why did you reduce it? Is it just to get it to flow out better? And no, it's not. The reason I reduced it is because if this was straight metal right here and there was no primer on it, no other bodywork or anything like that, then you would not use the reducer and you shoot the straight epoxy primer onto the metal and seal it. Since there's any other substance on the metal, a primer, bodywork, old paint, anything like that, you want to use the epoxy as a sealer to seal in what's there. Not a lot of overspray. Man, not a lot of overspray. I'm using this new gun, which is by AEROPRO. It's really economical. I think I paid about 70 bucks for it. It's an LVLP, not an HVLP, meaning it's low volume, low pressure, and it's really, really good if you work in a small shop or a small garage and you don't want a ton of overspray. You might have seen HVLPs. They're really good for shops and production work because they're quick. You know, you just go really, really quick, and there's a lot of material coming out. With this, it's a little bit slower, but you just don't get all that overspray all over the place. There's a little bit, of course, but I got the fans going. The door is kind of propped open there a little bit with another fan. There's 2 fans in here, and there was hardly any overspray. There's a little bit in the cab, which is bothering my eyes a little bit. Wear eye protection if you do this. But that's about it, really. And this laid down really, really nice. It's kind of impressive. Just poured it on myself. Really impressed with it. Worked really, really well, except for pouring on my pants right now. Battle scars, I guess. AEROPRO A610, about 70 bucks, I think. You can get them on Amazon. Worked really, really well. I was very happy with it. All right, so just got a second coat of primer on. Feeling pretty good about that. Everything looks good. Dash came out really nice. Kind of hard to see because it's dark in here. Up there in the window channel, it's a little bit light, but I think it'll be okay. Back wall really came out awesome, super smooth. I can't really get the inside wall of the step well because I just can't get the gun in there with the plastic down. So I guess when I mask the inside and start doing the outside, I'll take care of it then. So I'm gonna let this dry overnight. We're gonna come back tomorrow. We're gonna top coat it. All right, so it's the next morning. Everything dried up really nice in there. I'm gonna go ahead and get this with a tack rag, just kind of wipe any dust that settled over it. I went ahead and mixed up my paint already. This is the top coat that we're using, guys. It's again by Summit. It's a hot rod flat single stage acrylic urethane paint, and it is the satin black finish. They have it in flat or matte, I believe. I wanted satin black. The mixing ratio for this is 4 parts paint, and then you're supposed to use 1 part urethane activator, which I did. They say no additional reduction is necessary, but I did, however, use 10% urethane reducer, and I used the slow reducer with the slow urethane activator because it's kind of warm out. It's like 90 degrees here in South Carolina, and even though I got the AC running in the shop, I had the door open, as you guys saw when I was painting, so it got a little warm in here. Actually, it got a lot warm in here. And you always want to use a slower activator and reducer when you're working with warm temperatures. Also, it really helps it flow out really good. The wheels on this truck, which you guys have seen in previous videos, kind of inspired this whole color idea. It was not going to be this color to begin with. This is kind of like an interim paint job, if you will. You know, before I started this project, this was kind of my dream vehicle, and I had it in my mind that I really wanted a metallic cream colored Tri-5 Chevy truck with chrome 5-spoke wheels and a burnished brown leather interior. That was what I wanted. It's my dream car. And you know, when I bought this, that was still the plan, and then I was just looking for wheels. I happened to stumble across the wheels that we have in here, which are the Foose 5-spoke wheels, black with a little brushed aluminum trim ring around them. And I was a sucker. I fell for them. I was like, man, those are hot. I gotta have them. So wheels actually inspired this entire build to take a turn for the black direction that it's in. It's got this kind of sinister vibe going on now. And believe it or not, I am a person who is really tired of the murdered out all black thing that people do. They just kill it. And I'm kind of sick of it. And here I am doing the same exact thing. But sometimes the build speaks to you. Sometimes the build calls for what it wants. Things just kind of naturally progress in that direction, and rather than fight it, I'm just kind of going to roll with it. So by doing this single stage paint job, I'm going to put the same satin black on the exterior, and later on, if I want to take this to a pro shop and have them really, I mean, block this, 2K it, you know, filler primer the whole bit and get it laser straight, I can go with my metallic cream paint job then and still have all my black trim, and it's gonna look really sick too. So this dream of mine is not completely in the woods. We can still kind of make it happen. But for right now, I'm totally in love with this kind of sinister look that we got going on here. I don't know, it just spoke to me. In fact, since this entire channel features this truck, man, that's kind of a cool idea. I think what I'm gonna do, you know how people name their vehicles? I think we're gonna call this Sinister, but we're gonna do it with a C since it's like the YouTube star, Sinistar, right? So that's what we're gonna name this truck. It's gonna be Sinister. And I've got some really cool accents that I'm gonna put on this thing, so it's not all just satin black. That's really gonna look slick and pop it off. Got a lot of ideas going on in my head to make this thing look really cool. So we're gonna roll with this paint, satin black. I'm gonna start tacking this off and we'll get spraying. Well, my dumb ass being nervous and trying to calculate everything, go over things a million times, forgot to hit record on the camera. Let me get you turned around. We got our first coat down. I'll show you what it looks like. Kind of hard to see because it's dark, but it's flashing off now. I really like that sheen. I didn't want a flat color, but I didn't want a high gloss black in here. Just wanted that real nice satin black. And so far, I think that's what I got. It's really hard to tell what it's going to look like when it's completely dry, even though it is kind of dry to the touch. It's tacky, but I hope it stays this glossy and doesn't get too much more flat. I'm really liking the way it looks so far. All right, guys, second coat is done. It's looking really good in here. I am very happy with it. I know it's tough to see, but I'm gonna go ahead and start peeling some of this tape off, maybe brighten it up in here. You guys can get a better look. All right, guys, check it out. It's been about half hour since that second coat is down. A little bit more. All the paper and tape is off. Man, that looks great. This is exactly the color I was wanting. I really wanted that sheen. I did not want a flat black at all. I do, unfortunately, have one fuck up, and of course, where is it? Right smack in the middle of the dashboard where the radio is. I don't know if you guys can see it. There's that little run. See that? Yeah. It's always something. Why couldn't it be back there where it's going to be covered up? But a single stage, it's a really cool kind of classic look that I really dig. But you only get one shot at it. Whereas if you're using base coat, clear coat, you can kind of sand out that clear and buff it and polish it and kind of get rid of those little imperfections and dust nibs, and you can fix runs and all type of stuff. With this, it's kind of like I'd have to sand down that entire dashboard again, get all that paint off of there, reprime it, repaint it, and hope I don't screw it up again for the second time. So this is my truck to have fun with, so I think I'm either just gonna have to live with that little drip, or I'm gonna have to redo the entire dash. So for right now, I think I'm gonna live with it, guys, because I've been struggling with this thing for weeks already, so I think we're gonna call that good. Use the 1.3 tip on this gun for both the primer and for the top coat. And then every time I stop painting, I use a little bit of 3M gun cleaner. You squirt a little bit of this in there, fill up that adapter, pull the trigger, let it till it runs clear, swish it around, clean your tip out, wipe the whole gun down, really good stuff. And it just enabled my paint gun to shoot nice and clean every single time. I really use it every time I had to refill a cup, or if I switch products from the primer to the single stage paint. I just cleaned it all out with the 3M stuff. It works great. All right, guys, it's been a couple days since we shot that single stage on the inside of the cab. I let it set up for a little while because I'm gonna start taping it off now to do the exterior with primer and single stage as well. But I wanted that paint to really have a good chance to set before we put tape on it and leave it on there for a little while and start pulling it off. I don't want to risk lifting any of that new paint that we laid down. All right, first coat of epoxy down. All right, that's the second coat of epoxy sealer on. Now, when you do multiple coats, they want you to wait an hour for it to dry before you top coat it. So we're gonna go ahead and take a little break. Come back a little over an hour, we'll let this sit and hit it with our top coat. Looks pretty good so far. All right, we got our 2 coats of primer / sealer down. It's looking really good. We're within our recoat window. It's supposed to be 60 minutes if you do 2 coats, which we did. And we're running at about an hour and a half right now. So it's getting kind of late. It's starting to get a little dark out there. Not that it looks that way on camera, but I figure about another hour if I just do 2 coats of this, maybe a little bit less. So I'm here, I'm all set up, the fans are running, still got gloves on, might as well just get it done. All right, guys, it's all dry. Let me get you turned around and we'll check it out together. So let's go over the whole process in case I wasn't clear about anything throughout the making of this video. We did 2 coats of epoxy primer, reduced and used as a sealer. You use a sealer when you want to go over any existing finish that's there, or paint, or primer, or bodywork, or anything like that. If you're stripping it down to bare metal, you don't want to reduce your epoxy. You want to shoot it straight on as it is. We then shot 2 coats of single-stage urethane, and it's a satin black made by Summit Racing. There's some talk that all Summit paint products are made by a company called Kirker, which seems to be kind of consistent throughout Summit and Eastwood and all these other companies. They won't specifically tell you if you call them and ask them, because they can't for obvious reasons, but it's kind of rumored that that's what it is. It's the Kirker Endura line, supposedly. One of the problems with single-stage paint, as told by the pros, is that it's kind of difficult to shoot. Obviously, you only get one shot at it. You can't sand it and buff it. If you even wipe it kind of hard, it'll change the sheen level. It'll start to get shinier on you. So that's one of the drawbacks of working with this if you're a beginner, which I am. The other drawback is if you don't get your gun set up just right, what happens is you get what's called striping, which is where you'll shoot a pass of paint, and then the high and low parts of your fan, if they're not adjusted just right, and you don't have your travel speed and distance just right, it'll be a little bit drier on the top and the bottom. And by the time you go to pass over that again, or if you go on the other side of the hood or roof or whatever you're painting, it'll already be dry in those areas. So then when you go to pass it, you'll have like striping when everything dries. So you really got to get the gun set up just right, which I have that practice board over there that before I'd shoot anything, I would just keep working on that and getting everything set just how I wanted it so that that wouldn't occur. And it seemed to work out just fine. We don't have any striping. I'm really, really happy with how this turned out. I'm kind of shocked, honestly, because this is the first time I've ever painted anything of this size other than like small panels. And I was really nervous about it. And of course, lo and behold, I pick what's one of the most difficult colors to shoot for a beginner, which is this satin single stage paint. So I don't know if I lucked out or if it's just, like you guys watching YouTube videos and learning and trying to get as much information as I can. It really came out good. However, with single stage paint, as you guys can see, that black is super deep, super rich, and really, really nice looking, man. You just can't get that level of deepness, I feel, with the base coat clear coat system that is kind of popular nowadays. Plus, it's just got that kind of old classic look to it, and I really, really dig it. The paints themselves, guys, you got to mix these really, really well. In fact, the Summit Primer, when I got it, was just like a ball on the bottom of solids that was just sitting there. So I took it over to my local Home Depot. They shook both cans for me when I was ready to use them. And then I got it here, and I mixed them for like another 5 or 10 minutes with a stir stick and everything until they were just nice and smooth, and I didn't see any type of weirdness in there. But it's important when you're doing this to get them mixed really thoroughly, because you don't want to have any inconsistencies on the vehicle once you start spraying it. So let's talk gun and equipment. Again, this is an AEROPRO A610. It's made by a company called Ronpeng, and it's kind of a spin-off or the updated model of a really popular gun called the R500. The R500 is nowadays, I believe, like $58 or something like that on Amazon. This was close to 70. I'll put a link for it in the comments and in the description if anyone wants to go pick one up. I strongly recommend it. It's an LVLP gun, not high volume, high pressure. That stands for low volume, low pressure. And when you're in a small shop or a garage or something like that, man, they can't be beat. This shoots really, really nice and smooth, and there was hardly any overspray. I mean, a little bit landed on the floor because it was getting sucked out by the fans I had running, and it just swept right up. But there's nothing else on anything I had here. So that was one of the biggest factors for me, was not getting paint all over everything in here and shooting nice and straight, which this gun did flawlessly. Settings for it. So on the primer, I basically had everything wide open. I had my fan all the way open, and I had my fluid all the way open. I had my PSI set to 18. For the base coat, I've closed my fan down just a little bit, not too much, because again, I didn't want that striping to occur where you have a little bit of dry spot on top and bottom of the fan. And I'm not a pro, and I just don't know how to compensate for that on the fly. So I really just wanted a nice, smooth, consistent fan pattern coming out of the gun when I was shooting it. So closed the fan pattern down just a little bit, maybe like a half a turn. And I closed the fluid, same thing, I closed this fluid down just a little bit, but I did bump my PSI up to about 28, close to 30, because I really wanted to atomize that base coat as much as I could to get it to lay down nice and smooth. We're using these little desiccant filters here. Basically, you can see there's some beads in there, and when you first get these things, they're dark blue, and as you start spraying, the moisture in your line will start to turn pink if you have moisture in your lines, which I do, obviously. So when you're shooting paint, you do not want to have moisture in your lines. So, and everyone, no matter how good of filters that you're running, especially if you're not running a big expensive paint booth, you're just shooting in your garage like I am, these things are kind of imperative. You get these little filters at Harbor Freight, they're about $7. They make cheaper ones that are like $3 that you've seen them, those little bulbous looking things and just discardable. Well, these are all discardable, this one is too, but I think those are a little bit cheaper. The only drawback to those is that you can't see when it's time to change them, so I think you should just kind of, in between colors or type of coats or type of products, just take it off and discard it if you're gonna use those. This is a Harbor Freight Spectrum cup adapter. Usually when you buy these guns, they come with just the plain plastic cups that you screw onto here. I really like the Spectrum liner system. It's kind of copied after that 3M PPS system. This is a 57550 model number. I'm not sure. I'll put that in the description too if you guys want to pick this up. And I'll include the link to the Spectrum PPS cups. It really makes the chore of painting a lot easier. Guys, if you guys are at all apprehensive about painting your vehicle, as long as you've got some basic supplies and you watch videos, you don't have to just watch mine, but there's tons of really great videos out there that teach you how to do this type of stuff. Get out there and try it, man. It's just paint. Don't freak out about it. Don't stress it. You can do this stuff. If I can do it, you can do it. I am not a pro painter by any stretch of the imagination. I'm what I'd call a basic beginner painter. So, and I got it done and it looks fantastic. And like I said, this is one of the more difficult colors to shoot and one of the more difficult types of paint to shoot, and I did it. So if I can do it, you guys can do it. This is a big milestone for us, guys. We're about to mount Sinister back on its frame and start looking like a truck and maybe start driving this thing in and out of the shops. Lots to do, but I am super excited. Anyway, guys, this is a long one. Thank you so much for hanging in there. I hope you like how it came out. Leave it in the comments. I want to know what you guys think. Do you like the color? Do you hate it? Do you think it's played out, the black on black? I mean, I kind of do, so I'm not going to be offended if you think that. Love to hear your thoughts. Guys, you want that paint gun? Check out the link in my comments and description. Thanks for watching, and as always, until next time, I'll see you in the shop.